Everybody invests in marketing and technology, but how many actually make them work well together? And when it's off, you know it because it shows up in wasted spend, broken systems, missed growth. And that's why we're talking today with Maria Gunther. She's the CEO of Trellist Marketing and Technology, and she's built her career at that intersection, starting out as a graphic designer, moving up through client services, and now she actually leads the same firm that's navigated change for over 20 years. So she's not guessing about how to connect these worlds. She's lived in that messy middle from the beginning. I'm Bryon Morrison. Let's get to the leaders list.
Everything is happening through these screens.
How are we getting the most out of that person?
I want to see this thing grow long term.
Amazing story. You have such a unique perspective on that.
Schedule a 2-week vacation.
I applaud those models.
Undervalue.
Secure your digital footprint as well.
Why were they even put in place in the first place?
Only the most adaptable survive. Let's get to the leaders list. Maria Gunther, welcome to the leaders list.
Thank you for having me, Bryon.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Trellist Marketing, you guys are a fantastic marketing and technology firm. You've been around for a long time. You have gone through a pretty interesting journey in how you've come to the CEO role. And so let's start off with you just telling us a little bit about that journey and how you got started in the role and got to where you are today.
Sure. So I've been with Trellist for a little over 20 years. I started out as a graphic designer and project manager. I was moving back from Germany at the time and needed to establish a foothold back in my home state, closer to my family. And I landed at Trellist and had a set of tools in my toolbox that I felt fit really well, gelled with the founder and the owner from day one. And started off, kind of working my way through. I did that for about 5 or 6 years and really started enjoying the client facing and the project management piece of it more than the design. So I grew into becoming more of an account executive over the course of 5 or 10 years, and built a book of business primarily in the financial and the B2B manufacturing space. I just loved all the different ways that manufacturing can help you learn about new things and how we can express that through marketing, helping our clients. And then about 8 years into that, I decided that I needed a change and started having conversations with our founder at the time and saying, hey, I'm looking for that next step. I had been engaging in a lot of personal leadership classes and certificates and learning more about myself and what it meant to be a leader. And he happened to be really focused on growing our ventures business at the time, and said, this is actually a great transition for me as well, if you would be interested in stepping into the CEO role. So we worked together over the course of about a year on that transition and made sure that we were very much aligned in what we saw as the future of the company and building that vision together. We still work together very closely every day, and it's been a really great journey. That was about 5 years ago now. So
that's amazing. So 20 years in the same place, that's one of those things that I think a lot of people go, well, that's not possible anymore, but that it absolutely is and can be. And kind of an amazing story. You started out practitioner. You knew you wanted to be in the space. Tell us about Trellis and how different is Trellis today than it was like when you first joined, which obviously it has to be wildly different. But talk just a little bit about like what you joined versus what you're leading.
Sure. Well, when I joined, we were still kind of 10 years in at the time. A lot of our clients were small and local businesses, so we were gaining a foothold. We did always have, one of the things I liked about Trellis is we had a great balance of a marketing side as well as a technology side. So we were sitting next to developers and designers and data analysts, the whole time. So you were able to kind of learn very quickly and create a broader understanding of the full value that what we were bringing to our clients by working super collaboratively across all the disciplines at the same time. And we were we had an open format office that was a great way to get to know people and to learn about what they did together. So it was always a place where we were encouraged to think about that next thing, working with our career pather, and knowing that being an entrepreneurial organization, our founder is an entrepreneur at heart, and is always trying to architect and find the next thing, staying ahead of the trends, and invites everybody in the organization to be part of that. So I was offered a couple of different opportunities, that I tried within the e-learning space, within the film and animation space, and was allowed to kind of find my way through and be encouraged at the same time. So I have mentors at the company that I still work with every day that were once my peers, and now they're I still see them as my peers. And
Sure.
I just really enjoy the environment, the people, the curiosity, and always that drive to learn the next thing, do the next thing, bring the most value to the clients. So 20 years has gone really fast. The company has evolved from, like I said, doing a lot of very small business types of things to building enterprise level platforms. And now, really with the convergence of digital marketing and technology together, you can't separate those things. You never did, and we knew that from the beginning, which is why we were built in such a way. And I thought that was really, really exciting, and it didn't leave any gaps. And the clients liked having that, that broad flexibility in being able to tap someone you could bring into a conversation that knew that technology or knew that integration piece or knew what that brand was trying to say. So it's we've evolved as a company in the way that the industry has evolved. We've been forced to learn new things and understand what kind of platforms and investments the clients are making, also keeping a really close eye on the challenges that they were having, over the years when we would go through a recession or when budgets would be cut, or there would be one reason or another that, they had to evolve internally as an organization. And we were always very nimble and agile in being able to adjust our value prop and our approach to how we can help them at the same time. So it's a very dynamic environment, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny because 20 years ago, marketing, Trellist Marketing and Technology, like it's literally built into your name. And at that time, I remember there was always an argument where people would say, well, which one are you? And then we literally had a category created, MarTech. And so that became obvious. But now it's interesting to me because it's almost like another period of reinvention. Or at least it is in my mind. I don't know if you view it the same way, but do you think of this as an evolution, or is this one of those step function growth moments where things are massively going to change?
I think it's been moving faster on the consultancy and the agency side. I had a conversation with a large corporate organization just 2 days ago, a procurement individual who we were pitching to, and they asked, so are you marketing,
which is always
or are
fun.
you technology?
That's always super
fun,
right?
I have 2 check boxes, but I don't have one where I can check both. I have to put you in one or the other. And I said, well, unfortunately, we fit into both. Fortunately, we fit into both. Yeah. So I think some of the larger organizations still also are kind of limited in how they think about the way that we've evolved. We've always been, but other agencies are starting to evolve as well.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but dealing with procurement, always fun. But so do you find that more in the really large organizations where they are looking for specialists in one or the other and trying to figure out which box should be checked?
Yeah, I think for the size of our organization, we're about 50 people. We are competing against very large, top 5 firms that are providing a agency of record level, a very broad set of services that are more generic. What we've been seeing is that we usually fit into a niche, at least to get started, where we can get a foothold and are on the same bench as a host of other agencies of different varying sizes. So I think that where we start is less on we can do everything for you because we are full service, versus we have a very specific competency that we know you're going to need help in. And what I've been hearing and noticing is that large organizations are changing their approach to vendor management to be more specific to, we want the right vendors in the right place doing the things that we need them to do, rather than having them serve a broader purpose. So they are being a lot more specific when it comes to that.
So what's the unique set of skills and the unique spot that you believe you own?
Well, it depends on a couple of things. Right now, the marketing technology enablement, platform enablement piece is something that we feel is a very strong value prop for us. We are very deep practitioners across the Adobe Experience Cloud ecosystem, as well as at the enterprise level, as well as HubSpot and marketing automation, at that mid-tier to even sometimes enterprise level, where they're using several different things in their stack. But not only being able to be practitioners and optimizers of those, where a lot of large organizations don't necessarily have the in-house staff to support, we also like to take a look holistically about how all of their pieces of technology are working together, because the decisions that were made to invest in certain areas of technology were sometimes siloed. They were either made by just marketing or by just technology or just engineering, but that broader solution-oriented stack was not necessarily considered. So there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of different places where data is housed that's not unified. We can go in there and help clients make sense of that. And I think that's been a place that we've noticed a significant area of opportunity.
Such a need. I mean, the platform integrators and connectors of all of those solutions, we just have so many great point solutions now that being able to connect them is an obvious win. So
there's so many tools out there too. It's almost overwhelming. So being able to really evaluate what the needs are, and in most cases, tools that they have can do a lot more than they think. And they've invested in redundant tools that they're using to do the same thing. So being able to also understand what you really have and the power of what you've already invested in and getting the most out of that return on investment is really important too.
And so you're also advising against the tech stack, like the MarTech stack.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
not just implementing whatever they've chosen. Yeah. Okay, well, that makes sense. So now let's talk about... So, we always talk about the reluctant entrepreneur who was, they were just great at what they did, and then they get drawn into starting a company and they just wanted to be good at what they were great at, and control that. This is kind of the opposite, though. You went through each of the stages and you got to a point where you knew that you wanted to keep leading and you wanted to, move into that position. What was it about that process? Have you always been that type of person that, you like to rise through the ranks and you like to get to that leadership position? Or was this something that was kind of surprising to you? Just how did that work?
I don't really think of myself in that way, but when I look back at different points in my life where I have been put into a leadership position or asked to play a leadership position, there's more than I thought there was. From sports teams captain to sorority president to other things randomly. But I seem to have fallen into those, and I don't know if it was because I was the right person or the best person, but it just always seemed to be something that I felt natural and moved into. I didn't raise my hand all the time, but other people helped empower me to be on that path as well.
That's awesome. But you did at Trellist. Like, you looked at that and went to the founder and said, hey, I'm interested, right? So when you were coming up, I'm going to shift into the point of the show, right? The leaders list. And what, when you were in the practitioner role, you have a unique perspective. A lot of people don't really see that as you've elevated through an organization and then taken the leadership role, how your leaders list has changed between when you were, say, the head of accounts versus now overseeing the entire organization. What was that process like? Was that well facilitated by the founder, or was that something that you knew just inherently how to develop each area of expertise? Mm-hmm. And then, from a functional perspective?
Mm-hmm. What I think is really interesting about that journey that we worked in partnership together to define is first acknowledging that there are different personalities, personas, archetypes of leaders. That I wasn't trying to be the same type of leader as he was, right? It still is, right? And from that perspective, we complement each other. So when we work through what the role meant and the value that the role was going to bring in a slightly different way than it has in the past, that helped me better formulate what I saw as the vision for where I could help the company in the best way in this role. So, and because of the practitioner level experience that I had, the client interfacing level, understanding how different client organizations are structured in the industries, I think it helped me solidify the services level and solution level vision of our company in a different way than we had in the past, where it was more siloed. I saw that natural convergence of capabilities, disciplines, needing to be a better part of the delivery of how we position ourselves in the marketplace. So that's one way that I think that journey helped me reconcile, not necessarily having to be exactly who he is, but bring my own strengths to the table and helping us be a better company.
Well, what's interesting about that is just it seems like that's bigger than a client service perspective. And did you always have that orientation of thinking about solution sets because you were coming at it from the customer perspective? Mm-hmm. So to be able to do that, that is a C-suite level consideration. But now, was it a frustration point that you were thinking, hey, if I was in the leadership position, I could make these changes faster?
Not necessarily. I think it was always just the way that I think. I try to think in a modular way, in a scalable way, to try to find the right balance between efficiency and value in a message and how teams can operate. You know, it was more of an optimization exercise for me. Yeah, it had been kind of bubbling in my brain for a couple of years, but this really kind of helped bring things together. And I think having, I've a much different client services and solutions team than we had 10 years ago, right? We have different leaders helping to contribute to some of these newer technologies that we didn't have before. We have an AI transformation leader. We have a digital solutions leader, and they're bringing other things to the table that's helping to kind of crystallize that message even more.
Yeah, super smart. Okay, so what's on your leaders list right now? Well, first of all, before I ask you that, let me ask you this. What growth stage would you say Trellist is in?
Oh, I think we are at the cusp of evolving even further. So there are areas where we're leaning into on the marketing technology platform enablement side. We are also leaning very heavily into how AI can both help us transform internally, but also externally, building products, trying to find the right balance from an agency and a revenue generation perspective, to keep us sustainable for the next 30 years. So what balance of services are we doing versus where are we building solutions that are, based on business outcomes that we're crafting versus where are we going into products, and how can products also not only help complement our teams and our solutions, but also be a source of revenue for us. And with AI and vibe coding and all of the ways that things can be stood up so much more rapidly, you're making less of an internal investment. It's more of a strategic decision to say, yes, let's explore this, let's do this, and we can make a faster decision and pivot if we need to. So it's also balancing how we're generating revenue and different ways that we can leverage all of the great skills and ideas that we have in-house to be able to do that.
Yeah, so Would it be fair to call that an exploratory stage? I mean, because when we talk about transformational stage, that's usually more optimization related, right? How am I
Hmm.
transforming into another level? But yours is this is a very different time with
Hmm.
the convergence of AI, Martech's expansion,
Hmm.
platforms changing. Like this, it feels extremely exploratory, which has got to be hard for a 20-year-old company.
We're doing both and everything all at once. I mean, we have an
Yeah.
existing client portfolio that we we celebrate and we've had for a very long time, very long standing clients. And there are certain things that the teams are doing for them that are kind of in that keep moving, keep
Hmm.
going phase versus how are we getting that next set of clients? What is that next set of future forward services and solutions and platforms that is going to help us define new industry verticals or define new ways of that we're bringing our value to folks in the corporate world. So I think it's always finding it's maintaining a balance between the two of those things. You can't just stop one thing and start another. We're doing both at the same time and carving out accountabilities and teams and those skunk work sessions. I think is helping us to be able to make that pivot even faster should something change even more drastically. But things aren't stopping, so neither are we.
Yeah. Well, pace of change is unbelievable. So, what specifically is on your list? Like, what's the big thing that is you're focused on?
I'm focused on as a leader and for the company. I think it's making sure we have the right the right people on the team,
Hmm.
the right people on the bus that are going to share in that vision, continue to contribute to our growth, and have that forward thinking mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, and making sure that we're getting our message out there. So having the right people is super important because if you don't have the right people, they can be a real weight that you're kind of
For sure.
dragging behind you versus bringing people who are going to move you forward, push you forward faster, ask the right questions. We just hired three new folks in the business development space, and they are all bringing great energy and ideas and asking me questions that I haven't been asked yet. Why aren't you doing this? Or how about this? And it's really invigorating and helpful to get that outside perspective because if you're surrounding yourself with people who have all been doing the same thing all the time for the last 5 or 10 years, you don't know what you don't know. So I love the idea of making sure that we're constantly refreshing our team with people that are going to help challenge us. So that
Well, that
that's been
speaks to
that's been
this.
a big part of the rebuilding.
It speaks to the stage that you're at, also, Maria. Because if I think about the common growth curve, there's a stage where adding diversity of unique perspectives actually slows the company down because the company is small enough that you need everybody to stay focused and the leader plays such an important role that people have to go, okay, what does Maria want me to do next? And then you reach a point where the organization becomes bigger than the individual.
Yeah.
And at that stage, you do need unique thinking. And so there's all kinds of messiness that comes with that, though, right? Because now
Yeah.
you're bringing people in where there's a group of people that are probably like, hey, look, we haven't done it. We do it this way for a reason. It
Yeah.
works. And so there's this appreciation for how each group works. And have you seen any of that with, the old guard, new individuals?
We're very proud of our hiring and onboarding process. So, we do a really, really thorough evaluation of candidates to make sure that they bring the same type of thinking that we
Hmm.
have, right? That they're going to come in and hit the ground running. They're going to understand our philosophies and share in them. We operate within what we call a self-managed environment. So it's no one's going to be looking over your shoulder. We're putting together
Nice.
a framework for you to work within. But ultimately, how you work that framework and bring the value of what you have to the table is really important. And by that framework, I mean a very sophisticated architecture, internal architecture of processes, of models. We're very, very model based, heavily model based in how we make decisions and how teams collaborate, and how we think about things, that I think is really a great way to create a culture of collaboration so that when people come in, they're onboarded, they're hit with a fire hose for the first 2 weeks, but it ultimately helps to get them moving faster once they're through that process. So we're very, very interactive and engaged in the onboarding process to make sure. And sometimes people get to the end of that process and they're like, this isn't what I expected. This is completely different than anything I've ever experienced before, and they either love it and it's great, or it's not. It's not for everybody. But it's exciting when it works. It's energizing when it works, and I think most people get a lot of energy and passion out of being in an environment where you're working with people who are like-minded and unified in the goal.
Yeah, so you're basically bringing people in to help them understand culturally how they can bring innovation without ruffling feathers. But then on the flip side, it sounds like your organization's always been centered on innovation. So I would imagine the culture and the personalities of the individuals kind of thrive on new thinking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for telling us about Trellis and
Sure.
your path and what you've gone through. Now, let's think about the listeners that are running companies and they're going through, if I'm running a company and I've got, 200, I'm an SMB, I've got 250, 500 people. I'm thinking about, I probably have my CMO. If I don't, then I've got a fractional CMO. But then there's technology and marketing and how do they come together? And I'm just curious, what kind of things do you think should be on their leaders list as they're wrestling with everything that's happening today in marketing and technology?
So I think making sure that you are acknowledging the critical nature of every function in the company, but bringing them together to agree on and align on how those functions are supposed to be working together is really important. I think in a lot of organizations, you have very siloed functions that are working. The technology teams are over here and the marketing teams are over here, but they're not kind of coming together. And in a lot of ways, and they speak different languages, right? They communicate differently, which is one of the things that we like to say for our clients. We build bridges between teams that don't know how to work together. How do the businesses talk to Rev Ops? How to talk to marketing, right? So that they're all working together. Internally, it's no different. We operate within the framework of what I call our business development orchestra. So it's an orchestra of people that all are helping to think about our solutions, our sales, our marketing, our technology stack, how we're using that internally to help us thrive. So I think it's the collaboration and the unified, having a unified goal of, yes, this technology is producing this much engagement, but how are we thinking about it from a different perspective? So generating what that ROI is for every type of investment, whether it's a new venture that we're building or a new campaign or an event that we're investing in. I think everybody has to kind of understand how those things work together. So for me, it's really about collaboration and agreeing on a common goal before you kind of go off and work within your own systems and functions.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So centralize on the vision and then understand each group's individual thinking, but also that's similar to organizations that have gone through work style analysis and understanding individuals, right? Because then if you do that, you're already going to understand the groups operate in a certain way also. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I mean, how often do you go into organizations and find that they're really good at that?
Good at that. I think there are some of the clients that we have are super smart, super sophisticated, and I'm always blown away at how they are able to really do that well. I think there are some.
How do they do that well? Like what in those organizations, like you got to assume all clients are there's smart people there, and so let's go ahead and say that's you're not disparaging. I know you're not disparaging any clients. They're all good.
Yeah.
But in the ones where it works, what do you see them doing? Like what's on their leaders list that's making them actually make that work?
I think they have strong leadership that has a very clear vision. I think they also are surrounded by people who share in that sentiment, and they are working together. I'm trying to put this in a way that I didn't say it like the same thing 2 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
is it literally just that they have gone through the exercise of mapping
Yeah,
this
and
consistently?
and they and they've spent the time and they put in the work and
Okay.
they've really worked very very hard, and they also work hard to communicate that to everybody in the organization, whether it's a 15,000 company person organization or 5,000, right? They're very
Hmm.
very good at making sure that message gets across, and unified, for everybody to know, right? If you're people in the field versus people in corporate, they're not so hierarchical that they're not able to make sure that message gets across. People are smart; they want to know what's happening, and the more you keep them involved, the more that they're going to be engaged in doing their job the best way, right? So.
Got it. Do you find that the organizations that are doing a really good job in marketing and technology and bringing those together, are they structured in a way that's different? Like, is it all functioning under a chief revenue officer, or is it a brand-based mindset, or is it a tech-first mindset? Do you see anything structurally that you find interesting?
I think that's I I feel like that's very driven by the industry type, right? Within like a
Hmm.
manufacturing organization is very
Hmm.
different structurally than a financial institution.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I think the ones that are working better have made the investment in those digital, chief digital officers, chief customer experience officers, right?
Hmm.
They have people accountable for understanding the full experience, and they're looking more holistically across the organization. So I think when you're seeing roles like that and titles like that, that signals that you have leadership in an organization that sees the value in those types of things and needing to
Yeah.
invest in them.
And sees how they come together, right? I always felt the same way. When I would see chief experience officer, chief brand officer, I knew that that was somebody who was, they weren't thinking about logos on the side of packaging. They were thinking about cultural change in an organization and how you unify that as the central piece across everything that you do.
Mhm.
And marketing and technology, I tend to find that, if it's MarTech, then that tends to it's almost tactical, right?
Mhm.
It tends to be the stack and how you're operationalizing that versus how an organization works around marketing and technology being bridged.
And that's been an interesting conversation that we've been having around, should we just be Trellis Marketing Technology? And I always challenge that because Martech is not the same thing,
I
right?
agree.
It's very significant in that it's very platform driven. It's very driven by a single type of technology versus really acknowledging how each of the concepts of marketing as a whole and technology as a whole need to work together. Martech is one of those pieces that comes through, right? And is that kind of foundational, that can be a foundational part of the architecture and the infrastructure of a company, but it's a little bit different from a concept perspective. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Now, how long will it be until you're marketing technology and AI? Just
well,
kidding. Just kidding. But seriously, I mean, like it's so different, right? And
it's we look at our solutions through four different lenses, right? Customer experience optimization, marketing technology, platform enablement, solution architecture and delivery, and AI transformation, because it's in everything, whether it's in a MarTech platform or whether it's in how we're bidding on ads, or whether it's how we're writing code. Like AI is not going anywhere. It's inherently part of it. I think there's an interesting discipline around best practices in AI and how to use it and how to deploy it as its own kind of solution area that we are out there consulting with clients in, but it's already inside of everything that we're doing anyway. So it's just and a lot of a lot of companies are really pushing AI driven everything, and I like to try to find a balance between there's a very critical aspect to human aspect to making sure that the AI is being deployed responsibly. So we're still 50 humans, making sure that the clients are getting what they need every day. The technology and the tools that we use to drive that is evolving and is going to involve more and more AI, but there's always going to be, I like to think there's always going to be a human somewhere in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So if I tomorrow, I'm going to listen to this, I'm going to go, man, Maria's smart. I'm probably going to call Trellis. But if I don't do that, what's the first thing I should go do after I get done listening to this?
As a leader?
Yeah, to bridge that gap in marketing and technology and take full advantage of what's happening today, what's the first thing I should go do?
I think the companies that are really winning big right now aren't necessarily having the biggest budgets. You don't necessarily, say, oh, I can't do it because I don't have enough money to do it or enough budget or investment. I think you just stop treating marketing and technology as kind of separate conversations. They need to be together in the same room, and I think it's applicable to every leader in every space. And you just have to make the decision to invest in that, collaboration and defining for yourself and your organization, not only how do we think about marketing, how do we think about our brand, how do we think about our technology, but then, what is it underlying, what's driving all of those things, and how can we do it in a way that's going to benefit our business the most. So how are those things coming together? So I think they're just those conversations that need to be had in the same room.
Yeah, that's great. So still have your specialist leaders as marketing and technology, but make them work together, facilitate that process of getting them to work together and understand. So that's just good C-suite management in general, but that's such an incredibly unique thing. One of the things I was curious about is there a mechanism for forcing that thinking? Like one of the things that we consistently do and talk to clients about is journey mapping. To take someone through that process, because it's no longer about what's the tech stack and what's the marketing program. It is what is the consumer's experience. So you brought that up earlier. So yeah, are there other things that you see, like from an exercise perspective? I know it's a little tactical, but I probably need the tools to go do this tomorrow, right?
Well, at the end of the day, that's really what a company is doing. They're serving a specific persona, a specific customer or target audience. And that could be a really great unifying way of getting everybody in a room and saying, these are the types of people that we're trying to provide a service for, provide a product to. And everybody, whether you're in sales or you're technology or you're in a marketing position or a leader, you need to understand what these people are thinking, right? What is the psychology behind why they would make a purchase decision or engage in our brand for a way. And I think that's a great unifying concept, because the more people know that, then they're going back to their individual lens of what their role is, and saying, okay, how am I best using this technology to connect with this consumer? How are we best automating this process to get to our customer service representatives to provide the most value, right? I think that's a really great way of looking at it, and every company should really understand their target audience deeply.
Maria, that's such good counsel. And what's really funny is how many clients do we talk to that go, no, I know. But going through that process in a team environment where you are using the data of your ICP, and so you know who the ideal customer is within your own environment, but then you apply that against, like, what is the total addressable market down to the service obtainable market that balances against that. I think that is one of the most valuable things, aside from the journey mapping, which comes after that. Those two things are probably the most surprising, I think, when clients go through that, because they think they know. Everybody thinks they know. but until you put it down in document and you've gone through that exercise, it is surprising sometimes.
And I think it can get overwhelming, right? Because
For sure.
depending on who you're talking to, you could say, well, our target audience is everybody. Our target audience, these are all the types of things that they could do, or we could do, or where we could grow. Keep it simple, right? For the size of your organization, for the size of the teams that you have, pick 2 or 3 to start with. Two or three that represent your strongest, most loyal advocates as customers, right? And start there and really try to say, we want more of them. We'll worry about the other audiences at another time, but just start with something that you can all agree on, even if it's just a handful, and then that will get you that much further in trying to grow. And then as you add new personas on and have new opportunities, because as entrepreneurs, we're always opportunistic when it comes to talking to someone that you might not have targeted, or they're proactively reaching out to you, and you want to have those conversations. That's a good way to start. But starting with your core audience, I think, is important.
Maria, this has been fantastic. So I just want to thank you for coming on the Leaders List. I think your perspective from growing up through and leading an organization, but also working with so many different types of clients around this very messy space of marketing and technology is invaluable. So we just really appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.